is. Hello and welcome to episode 63 of C3 Crystals, Cauldrons, and Cocktails. I'm River.
And I'm Wren.
And today we're going to talk about covens.
Yes. I know we've talked a little bit about covens and I know we're oh yeah, we have our online coven, which is our Patreon and all of that, but we wanted to know a little bit more. And so that's what today is.
I forgot to say what we're drinking. I'm actually not drinking alcohol today, unfortunately.
Wow.
I hurt my back, so I'm on muscle relaxants instead, and I can't really drink with muscle relaxants. What are you drinking? Yeah. Are you drinking anything fun?
No, nothing fun. It's been a chaotic week, and so sometimes I just want to sit and relax with a nice cup of tea. So that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah, I am going to Dragon Con. I guess when this comes out, I'll be at Dragon Con. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Sorry, I can't go with you.
I know.
I know, but you're going to have a lot of fun. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Covens.
Okay. So what is a coven? And when you just Google, a coven is a group or gathering of witches who meet regularly, which makes sense.
there are a lot of definitions of what covens are out there. I found a couple that I liked. A coven is a group of witches that come together to teach each other and practice with one another. Witches in a coven are sometimes celebrate the Sabbats or pagan holidays together as well. A coven can also be a group of people who assemble for self-development and spiritual enrichment. Covens do not always worship the same god. Some don't worship gods at all. They might not even practice, quote, witchcraft, but they do share an interest in ritual meditation and spiritual enlightenment. The actual number of witches needed to form a coven is a matter of preference. Some groups form based on the number 3 because we've had an episode on the number 3. It's a witchy number. So it could be 3, 6, 9. Those are common numbers for a group of witches.
Yeah, that was one main thing that I really wanted to find out was I know we talked about this in, what was it, our last episode?
Yeah, it was recently.
Yeah, where we were we don't know the number, you can't, I feel like a coven has to be more than one, obviously, but we didn't quite know the qualifications of could it be 2? Could it be, So, yeah, that was one thing that I was very curious about.
Yeah. They seem to think it can only be 3 and up, but I feel like a coven could be 2 people meeting together to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And so now a little bit of history, and I really love history, but I myself had a really hard time finding history on covens. And I feel like maybe that's part of history is it's been kept so quiet because of what's happened. But the word coven has many origins. So from I was going to say Anglo-Saxon. Wow. You know where my head is in history. So from Anglo-Norman, it comes from the words covent or couvent, Cuvent. And then from Old French, covent. And then it comes from Latin in coven. Help me.
Probably coventum.
Coventum. Yeah. Which that one means convention, so
yeah,
it's kind of, I don't know. When I think of a convention, it's kind of it's
Dragon
a gathering. Con. Okay. Yeah. But
so,
also,
I'm going to the world's largest coven. Wow. Okay. No, maybe not.
Yeah. I think of conventions. I think of the nerdy things,
Thanks. Wow.
Yeah, you're a nerd.
Well, yeah, and I own it. That's okay.
So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Chaucer, the writer, used the term covent, that first one you were talking about, the Anglo-Norman one, Covent, in the Canterbury Tales to refer to a meeting of 13 people. 13 is another number that people often associate with covens. And then the term covine was used in 1662 in the witch trials in Scotland to describe the witches' organizations. And one of the witches, Isabel Gowdy, under torture, of course, because that's how this always happened.
Yeah.
She likened these covines to squads. The witches, yeah, isn't that funny? The witches were divided into these subdivisions because there were so many of them, Gowdy said. The earliest known reference to a coven is in the witchcraft trial that occurred in 1324 in Ireland, when Alice Keiteler, I guess is her name, she was accused of being part of a 13-member group. And then in the 16th and 17th century, more witches, though not a great number of them, confessed under torture to having joined covens. I mean, I feel like when you're being tortured, you're going to say anything to make it stop, whatever you think they want to hear. But then by the time the witch hunting died down around the early 1700s, that concept of a coven was firmly established because of these witchcraft trials.
Yeah. The term was largely used starting around 1921 when Margaret Murray promoted the idea that witches across Europe should meet in groups of 13. And so that's where, in my research, I found groups of 13 that they called covens. And for a little bit of background, Margaret Murray was a historian and scholar who was widely involved in the first wave, quotations, first wave of the feminist movement. Just so you're not like, oh, who's Margaret Murray?
Should be on the tip of all our tongues. Yeah, I didn't know that until you just said it. Another line of thought is that many actual covens, not the ones that were talked about under torture, but covens were familial, so that witches were taught by family members as opposed to unrelated people coming together, that it was passed down from generation to generation. And traditionally, that number was 13 members, which is 12 members plus a leader. And then the number 13 is also, interestingly enough, the number of people that can fit in a 9-foot circle. So there we are back with the number 3 again, the how important 3 is. I also read that a coven can be 3 or more, which I guess means that you and I are not a coven by ourselves, but with our patrons, we are.
Yeah, but I also think that we can also be a coven just by ourselves. Like there's not like a limit.
So.
I
think so too. I don't like, well, and I think witches are this way in general. We don't like strict, rigid stereotypes to define us. So
yeah. And okay, so now let's talk a little bit about types of covens.
Okay.
So 13 covens, online covens, which is what we kind of have, book club covens, strict formal covens, etc., are all types of covens. So formal covens, these normally have a hierarchy with leaders and ranks. And then there may be a priestess, and these covens might be more on the religious end of witchcraft, These probably have formal initiations, which scare me to be honest, where a new member might have to learn or show their intent before being allowed to join, right?
Yeah, kind of like in karate, to get your next belt, you have to perform a test or something. I wonder, I guess some of the formal ones might do that.
Whenever I think of initiations, I just think of like sororities and frat houses with rush, and how sometimes they can just take it too far and some kids die. And that's just awful, because they're just trying to, enjoy their time and join this really cool, like elite type of thing in college and just have fun. And then the older brothers or whatever you call them just take it too far, and then kids end up dying.
That does happen. I was in a sorority, and the rush for girls is a lot. There wasn't any hazing in my sorority, but I know that there is hazing in fraternities. It's just a guy thing, maybe. I don't know. Although maybe there are sororities that do that too. I don't know. My sorority had no hazing. We had to do things like learn the Greek alphabet. We had to be able to recite the Greek alphabet. We had to make a little plaque that had our we could decorate it anyway. It was more crafty than it was hazing,
Yeah. But I think it's very different now. I'm
Yeah.
not in one, but I'm still around that environment, and it's just completely different. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes my stomach turn whenever I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's what I think about when I think about like initiations. And so I know it's probably not everything is like that, but that's the first thing that my mind jumps to.
Mm-hmm.
But with these formal initiations, it could also be a ceremony where an oath has to be sworn type of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
There might be ranks within the members. So you can rise, like if you start at like the bottom and you go through ranks.
Some formal covens have assigned duties that you do at whatever rank you're at, but they might also have discipline or rewards or punishments, which, like you said, that's scary. I don't want to be punished.
Exactly. Like I'm not joining a coven to be able to be told what I can and cannot do. And if I do something that somebody set a rule on that I don't like, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be in that coven to begin with if I don't align with what they, but punishment is just so weird. Like, I don't know, like, it's just, who's to tell me, like, if I knock over a glass and then like, you get punished for dropping something, like, it's just an accident. So a lot of things that are like punished to me are accidents type of thing, like with children, like, you get punished for not listening to your parents or blah, blah, blah. But it's also like, why is there a punishment involved when they're learning? So like, I don't know. There's not a situation where punishment, I think, is.
But like
good.
Hogwarts was a school of witchcraft and wizardry. And there were punishments, just like in school, if you're late to class, you're tardy, they're points from 10 points from Gryffindor.
And I also think that's stupid because everybody's human and not like you don't know what's going on in somebody's life. So if you're late to a class, like, they're not 10 points from Gryffindor, like it's not like you're just late, like it's just a human thing.
I don't think I would like a formal coven. To me, witchcraft is more chaotic anyway, and I think I like to practice it in a chaotic way as opposed to these formal, strict guidelines.
Maybe some people do need these like formal guidelines and everything. And maybe if somebody who's like, no, I need guidelines is listening to me and going like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, that's how everything is ordered and structured, like how our society is. We have rules and everything.
Yeah.
But I just don't like the idea of punishments and rewards because you're quote unquote following somebody else's ideal of what's good and bad. Everybody has a different ideal of what's good and bad, you know? But okay, let's get back. Okay.
Off topic there just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Meetings. So these meetings are often held with a rigid structure, not unlike corporate meetings with minutes being kept, assignments being made, news being shared, etc. You also have celebrations, and these are normally done with like pomp and circumstance and celebrate in a structured way. And then you have worship. So there might be some worship being done as in like a church, depending on the coven. And then magic, of course. So you have group spells, and those are often maybe a little bit more formal in a group. And actually with the group, it can be quite powerful. And I mean, that's why covens are a thing, because as we band together, our magic becomes a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
So I would say like, that's like a really good upside, but I'm just like, I don't know. I don't think that a formal coven is really what I would want to be in.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think. But like American Horror Story season 3 was called Coven. And that's one of my favorite seasons. And I love the idea of their coven. It was there to find witches and train them to preserve witches who were a dying breed. So they were trying to find and bring them in and train them. It was more like a learning academy. But did you know that in real life, that academy in New Orleans, which was the one featured on season 3, it's an actual place that you can rent. Wouldn't that be so cool?
Yeah.
I wonder if it meant like renting to live in, or renting for weddings, or,
or like renting for the night to like stay, or renting for, like scenes, like how they probably rented the whole place to do the show.
Yeah. How cool is that? And then another
cool
example of a formal coven in TV is Sabrina, the new one, that new series, Sabrina. I can't remember the exact title.
It's not, it's based off of, it's on Netflix.
I love that.
Yeah, it's
series.
like based off of the old show, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. But it's like also not like, there's like small like things that like link to it, but it's really not the same.
Yeah, I love the newer one.
Oh yeah, it's very, very good.
And that coven was super formal. They went through some really interesting changes from being a patriarch type ruled coven in the beginning to a matriarch ruled coven near the end, which I thought was really pretty interesting. But it did deal a lot with learning and teaching of the craft, and was also more structured like a school as opposed to an actual
it
coven.
was more like a school. You're making me want to go back and rewatch it. I guess it is kind of like that time of year that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched a scary movie yesterday. I don't remember what it was now, but it was really good. I think I texted you whatever the name was, so you'll have to watch that.
I can't remember. Yeah, but
I can't either.
Have it on my list now.
I'm like, is it close enough to October yet to be watching horror movies every day?
Hey, I watch horror movies all year round.
Me too. I love it. So the next kind of covens is online covens. And in today's world, these are becoming really popular. You might meet via Zoom. COVID definitely changed the way everyone thinks about things. And so there are covens that meet online, and that's really cool because you could be anywhere in the world. We could have a coven with someone in Australia, that's someone here in Georgia, someone in California. It would just be tricky trying to find a time where everybody's time zones line up.
Yeah.
But and even those can be formal too. You can be just as formal or informal as you want online as well. And any type of coven, I think, could be done online. And I think it's a really cool way to learn about other cultures too.
Yes. Yeah.
Just,
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, okay, I'm still having a hard time with this formal coven. To each their own, but I just hate being told what to do, and I would rather practice. I mean, I guess that's why I've been solely myself for a couple of years, because I just okay. Anyway, book club covens.
This would be my favorite. I love this one.
Probably mine too. Okay, so these are covens where people gather together and socialize and talk about magic. That
sounds lovely to me.
Yeah. It's usually a topic that's picked for each meeting, and members will research and talk about what they have learned about their personal experiences with that topic, etc. Sort of like kind of like what we do with this podcast. You know? We pick a topic. We were like, okay, yeah, that's a great topic. We don't really know much about it. We expand our knowledge on it, and then we
talk about
vomit it onto the internet.
Verbal witch vomit.
There might be wine and food while people sit and chat, which sounds absolutely fantastic.
Lovely. Yes.
And they'll chat about like what sources they use to learn this topic, what articles might be good, what books are helpful, and what books are not in line with beliefs of their particular practice. These covens are more about learning, socializing, and discussing magic ideas, which I am all for. Like, I really love. Too. I mean, if you guys didn't know, I love to talk. I mean, come on.
Hence having a podcast.
Yeah, and so it's I like this one a lot because that's just like, food,
that's
wine,
your vibe. That's my vibe.
I just picture like a nice, like moody, like fire in the fireplace, warm tones, chilling. Yeah.
I mean, we could even watch documentaries on witchcraft, and, because I really love the history and how things have gone. So yeah, that would definitely be my type. And we could actually read, we've both got a lot of books on witchcraft, and we could take one of those and say, hey, let's read chapter 5 and talk about it. I mean, to me, and drink our wine or cocktails while we're doing it. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And then there's independent covens, which, okay, that sounds like an oxymoron. Independent group. I mean, how can you be independent and be in a group? But what I really mean is that it's a coven that fits your specific type of witchcraft. Not everyone wants to practice the same way. So the key to having one of these is to be able to find a group of people that are willing to get together and practice that have similarities. Some groups might only want to celebrate the Sabbats, and some might be more interested in kitchen witchery and meet only to cook. Some groups might be into potions or herbs and meet to do things with those. Maybe someone in the group needs help with something, and the group comes in to help them come up with a spell that they all perform together to help that individual member. Maybe the group are all moms and they're trying to focus on spiritual support for each other, and then have their kids have play dates while they're discussing these things too. There's all kinds of different covens. So I think that last one pretty much encompasses everything else, because it's independent based on whatever the people in that coven want.
Yeah. Like one similarity or so. Yeah.
Like we're all herb witches, and so we want to meet together for that. Or we're all storm witches, so we want to meet together to deal with that. Yeah.
Now that we're talking about kinds of covens, but if you're not in one and you want to be, how do you find a coven? So just take to the internet, right?
Yeah.
You have Facebook, online searches, word of mouth are great. Like these are all great ways to find an existing coven. There are lists online that can help you find the right type of coven in your area, whatever it is. And I know we've been a little slacky on our Patreon and we're trying, but I know that we've caught a couple of people's eyes because we are an online coven, and I know people love the idea of that. And I really do feel like we grow together and we listen, like, even just like sharing things on Patreon really help bond anybody who's
one of our patrons, Nika, she is so good at making comments and things. She actually just sent a message. I don't know if you saw it yet, and I don't know if you responded.
I did. I replied. That was yesterday. So, it was like yesterday evening that I saw it, and she recommended. They sound fabulous, like raspberry wines, because I know I talked in the previous episode about how I've been trying to love a good red wine, and I'm having a hard time because they're never sweet enough for me. And I have a really bad sweet tooth, apparently, when it comes to wine. And so she recommended 2 that I'm very excited to go snag and try.
That's very cool.
So, but it's so great to have even people online to just chat to and talk to that we can relate to. So you guys can join our Patreon and have an online coven as well.
Yes. Or, you can start your own coven too. You don't have to find one that's already in existence, and that's important too, because sure, there may be a coven near you, but it might not be, it might be super formal, and that's not what you're interested in. So, the key to doing this is trying to find enough people that are like-minded with you to get this going, which is easier said than done. So basically, how to start a coven. You decide what type of coven you want. Formal, informal. Are you going to have bylaws? What will be the mission statement or purpose of your coven? Will you have a zero tolerance policy for certain things like bullying, or you don't want smokers, or, that kind of thing? Will the member have to sign an agreement to be in the coven? Then you have to decide, okay, so how are we going to run this coven? Will you run it because you set it up, or are you going to rotate the hosts? Rotate the roasts. Wow. You would think I was drinking. I'm not drinking, y'all. So, which I think would be kind of cool if you have a different host every week, so that people don't feel like, that person's trying to be the leader and we all want to share in that role. Sometimes maybe you do want to be the leader. Maybe you do want to have that kind of ranking where you're the host every time. Will it be held at members' homes, or a local park, a graveyard? Will you rent a venue? Like Girl Scouts, we always used local churches to meet when I was a kid. Keep in mind transportation issues and parking, though. So if you're in an apartment complex that has limited parking, it might be hard to have, 10 people come in with cars.
Yeah.
So think about that too. How are you going to handle requests to join? Will there be initiations, which we were just talking about? We don't like initiations. What will be required to be initiated? What qualifications do you want someone to have to join? And I think I cut off. You were going to say some stuff and I talked right over you.
No, it's okay. It's fine. My cat was chewing on my cord, so it's fine.
Oh no.
I was kind of blacking out for a second. Yeah, like off of that, will there be a ranking system? And then I don't know if you said this, how often you'll meet, because with the ranking systems, you also have like degrees and, if you like apprentice and, how will it work? Will you have like a high lord,
in World of Warcraft, when you make your own, what are they called? Guilds. That's kind of like a coven, and you're able to set what you want your different ranks in the guild to be called.
Yeah. That's very true.
Like first degree, second degree, whatever.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. And then like, if you want, even if you don't want a ranking system at all, if everybody's completely equal. And then when you meet, like how often will you meet? Every full moon, every week, every month, only on the Sabbaths, only when it rains, type of thing. So,
yeah, like I suppose if you're into kitchen witchery and, you might want to have different types of meetings during different seasons. Like you might want to go on a scavenging trip together to the forest to find the herbs and berries and things, and then go home and make things out of that. And in the winter, you might want to have a comforting, comfort cook food type meeting where, it's all just that lovely, the smells of the cookies or whatever it is you're cooking. So, think about that too. And then what's going to actually happen at the meetings? What is it that you want to do? Do you have an agenda? Will there be a ritual to start each meeting and end each meeting? Are you going to cast a protective circle every time, or only when you cast magic? Will your coven worship or work with any deities? That's the tricky part, trying to find other witches that align with your particular deities. You don't actually have to worship if you don't want to. You can have a symbolism deity. Like for me, it might be Lilith. I'm infatuated with her at the moment. Will your group do special things for the pagan holidays? Are you going to have like a Yule party, that kind of thing? Will you raise money for causes, which is always a great thing when you have a group?
Yeah, that's always a great thing. I just think that when it comes to money, a lot of people are like, ooh, they kind of like pull out because they're like, oh, that's all that you want,
Yeah.
That's just like the one thing that I would probably be like, oh, you don't have to, of course, but we can always raise money to help support other covens if need be, and other like, I guess, affiliations that we want to support. Also, my favorite part. Will food be served at your meeting? And would it be like formal or snacks? No food, which I think a no food coven meeting would be kind of boring. Would you also serve alcohol? And
yay, that's my thing.
And who would be responsible for these? Because like food and snacks and alcohol doesn't just fall from the trees. Which I wish it did. I mean, it could be responsible for this.
Potluck every time, but I've read some things where people are busy, so it might rotate with the host. Maybe you have a formal dinner on the Sabbaths and just snacks otherwise, or whatever. Yeah. I definitely like the idea of food and alcohol at a coven meeting.
A good charcuterie board, a good like sweet wine, and
Yeah. And then
right up my alley.
Are you going to have a dress code? Like the formal ones might have a dress code. Maybe there will be a set of colors for your coven. For each meeting, a member has to choose a color to represent. You know how the cardinal directions are all associated with colors. And maybe if you're going to be casting spells, the person who's going to stand for the east has to wear that color, and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. And then also one other thing is like, what kind of spell work are you going to be doing? You know, like, I mean, I know that's not as interesting as the food. I'm just kidding. But it's very important to understand and like be what like on the same wavelength. I know there's a word for it, but I can't think of the word right now.
I think
on
wavelength is right. Yeah.
As everybody else to be able to be doing spells.
Yeah. You know? Are you all planning to go and cast spells naked out under the full moon? Some people might not want to do that. So yeah.
So basically you don't have to have a coven, you know, like, it's completely fine if you don't have a coven. It's completely fine if you do, you know, to each their own. But who doesn't love a chat with fellow witches? You know, I think that any listener here would be like, yeah, I love listening to you guys chat. I love learning things. Like, it's just really fun to just chat about this stuff and bring up things that I probably wouldn't even think about, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
It's always really nice to have those in-depth conversations with friends and talk magic, somebody that you can relate to, especially if you work like, you know, with other people who have no interest in this topic at all, or if your partner has no interest in this topic, you know, you always need somebody to talk to about this.
I agree.
I think, you know, a coven would be a really good idea if that is something that you want to do. But that's all that we have on covens this week. And if you guys ever have any more information that you want us to talk about, we'll definitely bring it up in the next podcast. But thank you for listening.
Yes.
You can find us on our website at www.c3witchypodcast.com. And that's where wow, I'm only having tea. That's where you will find the links to our social media. That's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and links to our episodes as well. I know that we've been slacking. I know we've been slacking for quite a while on our social medias. When we have time, we'll figure it out. We also have merch on our website, so you can get some C3 gear and support us that way.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Speaking of supporting us, please consider becoming a patron. Any of you guys that do that, it would be so helpful. Any amount that you give, it could be $1 a month, and that helps us tremendously. Thank you to our existing supporters. You guys rock for real. To support
Come join
us.
our coven.
Come join our coven. If you want to do that, click on the Patreon button on our website. It's on the very first part that comes up when you click on the website, or you can go to www.patreon.com/C3witchypodcast. Also, don't forget I have an Etsy store, so come check it out. It's got a whole bunch of witchy things. It's at www.batsandbaublesinc.etsy.com. Let us know if there's any topics you want us to cover. We'll be glad to do that. We are always looking for ideas.
But I think that's it for now. And we'll be back.
Yep. Stay witchy.